Hi everyone, welcome again to AuthorStory. I'm Alexander Lim, your host, and for this episode, I'm interviewing Mia Tomikawa, who is speaking on behalf of Master Ryuho Okawa, author of the book The Unhappiness Syndrome, 28 Habits of Unhappy People and How to Change Them. And for those of you following along who are interested, you can go over now to the Amazon link in the description below the video and check out or get a copy of this book. So, Mia, welcome to AuthorStory. Thank you very much for being our guest.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Pleasure is mine.
You're welcome. So, Mia, we've done books with Master Okawa several times before on AuthorStory, but for the benefit of our listeners who might be new or who might not have heard of Master Okawa, can you give us a short thumbnail sketch of the man in this movement?
Sure, Master Ryuho Okawa is a renowned spiritual leader as well as an international best-selling author. And he has been active in Japan and around the world with one simple goal, which is to help people find true happiness and create a better world. Master Okawa has published over 2,200 books to date, and he has sold over 100 million copies worldwide, and his books have been translated into 28 languages, and he has been active for the last 30 years, and he has members and followers over 100 countries.
Wow, okay, so this is a big movement then.
Yes, it is. It's a global movement that started in 1986.
All right, cool. So 31 years. All right, interesting. So Mia, please tell us a little bit about yourself. How are you related to happy science and how are you involved in it?
Sure. I live in Japan now, but I used to live in Los Angeles, and that's when I met Master Oka's books. And I was very touched and moved deeply by his books, and I decided to visit his temple, Happy Science, his organization that he established. And that's when I was able to learn more about his teachings and the organization Happy Science, and I became a member right away. And after being active as a member, I really started to want to contribute more to support the movement because it really changed my life for the better.
All right.
So back in 2008, I was able to join as a staff member and started working to help his books sell more in around the world.
Okay, cool. So are you like one of the, I don't know what you call them, publishers, publicists related with Master Okawa's books?
Yes, I am an editor as well as a publicist for this book, The Unhappiness Syndrome.
Okay, cool, fantastic. So let's get along. Let's talk about the book now. Can you tell us what it's all about and who it's for?
Sure. It is the Unhappiness Syndrome is basically for people who are suffering from unhappiness without knowing that they're actually suffering this unhappiness syndrome. Surprisingly, in this book, Master Ryuho Okawa says that as many as 80 to 90% of people unconsciously choose thoughts and actions that create unhappiness in their lives. And of course, we all want to be happy, but if we unconsciously choose actions and thoughts that invite unhappiness, we become unhappiness even though we all want to be happy. So this book is for those people who often find themselves attracting unhappiness to their lives, even though they really want to be happy.
Okay, got that. I got that. Okay, so just a little sidebar here. I acknowledge that one of our cats is presently meowing. So if you or any of our listeners there hear a cat in the background, that's her.
Okay, maybe your cat wants to be happy too.
Yeah, maybe she does. Maybe she does. So, Mia, before anything else, let's get into the definition of terms. What is unhappiness and what is happiness?
Oh, that's a very big question. So I will answer your question in regards to this book.
Okay.
And unhappiness, I think, is to becoming unhappy is about, first of all, being unhappy with yourself. If you're not happy with yourself, that's really sad. And also another thing is you're unhappy with the people around you, and also you're unhappy with the environment you're in. And I think the basic principle is that when you're seeking to get happiness from others or your environment, you will eventually become unhappy because you don't feel like you have control over your life. But if you start giving happiness, meaning try to bring happiness to other people's lives and in your environment you're in, you find happiness. So it's kind of paradox or ironic. But once you start spreading happiness, you become unhappy. But you become happy. But if you try to gain happiness from others, you become unhappy. That's my definition.
Okay, cool. I got that. Now, you mentioned that this book is for people who are unhappy. Now, the thing is, people being people, a lot of them might not know they are unhappy in the first place. So, are there any signs or symptoms that, people might make people realize that they are unhappy?
Well, there are many signs, but I think in general, if they constantly blame other people or the environment for their unhappiness, I think that's a general sign that you're suffering from this unhappiness syndrome. For example, if you want to be successful in your job, and if you can't get ahead, for example, in your career, and if you find yourself blaming the company or the people in your company, then that's a pretty good sign that you're suffering from the unhappiness syndrome.
Okay, so it's sort of like everything is everyone else's problem. I'm okay, I'm fine, I don't have any problem. It's something like that.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so I have to ask about a couple of things. First off, syndrome. Now, syndrome is indicative of a disease or an illness. So, would you say that happiness then, in this light, is something like a disease that has to be cured?
Well, it's kind of has a similarity to disease in a sense that you kind of invite it to your life. But I think he's using the term syndrome to mean more like an attitude or your mindset. So it's more like a mental or spiritual state.
I see. So it's more like unhappiness mindset or an unhappiness attitude, something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay. So I have to ask about unhappiness. Why is being unhappy so bad? I mean, isn't eventual enlightenment and the progression of our spirits not attained after being honed by suffering and therefore unhappiness?
Well, unhappiness. Oh, that's a very philosophical question.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think we generally think that being unhappy is a bad thing, but I think it's because we invite miseries and tragedies to our lives and end up causing much trouble and problems to other people by being unhappy. Because when you're unhappy, you try to gain something from other people, like I said, and you end up causing sorrow or anger or misery to other people. So I think that's why being unhappy isn't good.
Okay, okay. But, enlightenment through suffering, I guess that's kind of okay then.
Enlightenment and suffering. Can you
Through suffering, it's sort of like you're honed by suffering, and by through that honing you achieve enlightenment, sort of like a piece of metal, a knife being quenched and pounded in flames before it becomes a knife.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Well, in a sense, suffering is also something that can train your soul. So in that sense, it can bring you fulfillment or some sense of contentment. And I think in that definition, I think it's part of happiness to be able to learn from your even negative experiences. Once you learn your lesson and gain something out of your, even from a tragedy or bad experience, then you're gaining something out of it, which can be a source of your happiness.
Yes. So what then would be the differentiation, the delineating line between unhappiness that brings enlightenment and unhappiness that just brings unhappiness?
Well, in the end, I think it all comes down to your realization or your awareness of what happened in your life. Like you can experience the same thing and you may see it differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you, for example, if you make a mistake at work,
Mm-hmm.
you can totally see it as a seed of unhappiness and get depressed, and you can suffer from it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just see that mistake as a seed of your success, and you can learn from it and try to improve your work skills, or even you can even share your lesson with other people, and that can become a source of happiness. So I think it really depends on how you look at it and what you gain out of it. That kind of makes differentiate whether it becomes a seed of unhappiness or seed of happiness.
Okay, so it's sort of like our attitude to what happens towards us then.
Yes, that's why I think the perspective or mindset is very important. And that's what he is trying to show through this book, The Unhappiness Syndrome.
Okay, okay. Yeah, with regards to unhappiness, is there any one underlying principle or one underlying theme behind ways by which we can adjust our attitude from focusing on unhappiness to focusing on happiness?
Okay, I think one probably useful or helpful attitude or tip is to really know yourself, I think,
Okay.
because without knowing yourself, meaning without reviewing your thoughts and actions
Mm-hmm.
from a very objective perspective, you can't really tell what's inviting happiness or what's inviting unhappiness to your life.
Okay.
So I think the underlying principle is to be able to see yourself objectively.
Okay. Okay. I got that. So, is there any so what's coming out here for me is that unhappiness is an attitude. It's kind of like a mindset. Is there anything I can do to? Is there any particular mindset or anything I can do to change my mindset to cultivate an outlook that's brighter, that's more optimistic, that's not so unhappy?
Okay, so I think it really depends on the situation, but I think basic guideline is, like I said, to really review your thoughts and actions every day and just think about what kind of thoughts you had today or what kind of actions you took today, and see if there were any negative thoughts or actions that eventually invited unhappiness to your life. And if you can find them, try to replace them with more positive thoughts. I know this kind of sounds very abstract,
Okay, okay,
but so let me give you an example. Let's say you envy other people's success, for example.
okay.
So your thought in your mind would be, okay, I don't like him or I don't like her because he or she is very successful, and because of him I can't be successful, I can't get
Right.
a certain position in a company or something like that, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So your thought, and then you may end up saying something mean to them.
Mm-hmm.
So your thought is a very negative thought, a very negative emotion toward that person.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we replace this negative thought with a positive thought?
Mm-hmm.
It is to know that the person you feel jealous toward is the person you want to become like. So you
Mm-hmm.
feel jealous of that person because he or she is actually your ideal person, meaning she or he has what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of harboring jealousy within your mind, try to wish for their success. So you want to become like them. So if they become even more successful, then that's a really good news for you, because you can be more successful if you help them become more successful. So by filling your mind with a wish for success, you can actually eventually attract success and you become more happy.
Okay. So how would I go about doing that? Like, say I've got these, I hate this guy because he's so successful and things like that. How would I change my attitude? Do I really do I have to like write down all the negative thoughts I have about him or anything like that?
Yes, I think that helps actually, writing down your thoughts. And if you can't really tell or remember your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good way to start is to write down what you said during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And because your words often reflect your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find any negative words that came out of your mouth, and that's a really good sign that you had negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
And you can't really automatically replace your negative thoughts with positive thoughts. You have to kind of think, okay, why did I have this thought? And what kind of positive thought can I replace this with? And you kind of write down positive word or positive thought that counter the negative thought or negative thing you said. And if you just do it every day, you get a knack of it and you'll be able to do it more smoothly. But it takes practice.
Okay, yeah, well, definitely anything that requires change definitely takes some time. So I got that. So this is kind of like reprogramming my mindset or what I say then, my attitude then.
Yes. And by having replacing your negative thoughts with positive thoughts, you can really attract positive things to you.
Okay, interesting, cool. Attraction, cool. So, Mia, let's get a little bit into the unhappiness side. What is I mean, it occurs to me that unhappiness comes from what you tell me, pessimistic thinking, thinking bad about others. What are the roots of pessimistic thinking that lie within us?
Yes, usually pessimistic thinking arises from a very strong focus on protecting yourself,
Oh,
and which usually comes from your past experience of being hurt. So if you have experienced something that really hurt you or that brought you pain in the past, that will automatically imprint an image of a failure in your mind, and you end up repeating the same pattern. So if you want to get out of this pattern, I think Master Okawa mentions 2 steps in this book that you can take. And the first step is to try to spend less time wallowing in negative thoughts. So whenever you find a negative thought or image in your mind, try to discard it right away. And tell yourself, and you just need to let it go and not let it bother you. And the second step you can take is, like I said, fill your mind with a positive thought. And try to find seeds of joy around you and pay attention to whatever good that happens to you around you, and just try to be thankful for any thing good that happens to you. And that way you can gradually start thinking more positively instead of pessimistically.
okay, I got that. This rethinking, this reprogramming, there are two ways that occurs to me that this can be done. Um, and just use a martial arts example. One way, I guess, to reprogram is something like karate. Use force to overcome obstacles, and another something like aikido, where you go with the flow. Now, most people, I think, will kind of like go when they reprogram themselves, when they think of happy thoughts instead of unhappy thoughts, they might want to do karate. And the thing with karate is, that kind of approach is it might persist. The unhappiness might persist because that's what they focus on. I shouldn't be envious, so they think envy all the time. Is there a way by which we can think more along the lines of Aikido, like go with the flow rather than resisting what the unhappy thoughts?
Oh, I see. Yes. It really depends on the situation. So, um, for each person.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is kind of hard to tell which method works better
Mm-hmm.
without knowing a specific circumstance that person is in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's still important to try to change your mindset to attract more positive things to your life. But sometimes you just can't help but just encounter really negative things and events,
Yeah.
and you just can't, take control of them. And in
Yeah.
that sense, I think it sometimes really helps to just sit and wait because sometimes doing something can make it worse.
Mm.
So I think we should still try to be positive about our situation and try to replace any negative thoughts or feelings with positive ones. But if there is no way out, if you feel like there's no way out, and then I think it sometimes helps to really sit quietly and wait for bad times to pass.
So this is something like meditation, then you're just letting it flow. Then you're just letting the bad time pass. Then.
hmm In other words, I think if being happy becomes your attachment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that makes you unhappy. That's very
Yes.
ironic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I think you should let go. And so that also takes some practice of reviewing your thoughts and feelings honestly. Like if you have to be happy all the time, then that's your attachment,
Mm-hmm.
and then that may be actually bringing you unhappiness.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Right. So, so
All
that's
right.
very ironic, but I think that happens sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, definitely does happen. I mean, all these people want to be happy. Now, there are a lot of books out there on how to get happier, or at least get less unhappy. So, what is it in this book that would make someone think, I should get this book instead of getting some other book on the same subject?
Okay, I think one unique aspect of all of Master Oka's books is that he talks more. He focuses on our spirituality more
Mm-hmm.
than other like how to be happy books.
Mm.
So yeah, it really he talks about making efforts and trying the best that we can to get through any difficult times.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, he also talks about how important having faith in heaven and believing ourselves is.
Mm.
Um, so I think that's a very huge aspect that really differentiates his books with from other books
Mm.
of self-help.
All right, cool. I got that. So, Mia, let's say you met up with a person who's unhappy, for whatever reason. I mean, could be lost his job, got annoyed with their dog barking, stuff like that. And you had only enough time to tell that person one thing about maybe how to change their attitude. What would be that one thing you would tell that person and why?
Okay, well, that's a very difficult question, but okay, let's say um, this person is unhappy with his or her job,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the source of their unhappiness. I would tell them that um, they have to remember why they are born into this world in the first place, because everyone has a mission, a purpose, and also a plan that they have made before they are born into this world, which is a very unique spiritual perspective that Masoka offers by the way. So I will tell them to try to remember what their purpose, mission, or plan was before they were born into this world. And that would give them an answer as to what they need to do to become happier.
Okay, got that. And of course, they're finding out what their purpose is. I guess that's the subject of another book.
Exactly.
Because that's a big topic right there.
It is.
Okay, cool. So, Mia, in the last few minutes or so of this interview, are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share to inspire our listeners?
Well, okay. I think the first step that everyone can take is to realize if they have any patterns or thoughts and actions that are actually inviting unhappiness. And this might sound a little negative, but it really isn't, because I think becoming aware of your own patterns is really the first step to becoming happier. And this really takes a practice, but if everyone can review what's going on within and try to see their situation objectively, I think they will find any patterns or seeds of happiness, and they can become happier in their lives.
Okay, got that. Cool. So, great words of wisdom right there. So, then in closing, the book is The Unhappiness Syndrome, 28 Habits of Unhappy People and How to Change Them. The author is Master Ryuho Okawa, my mistake, sorry. And you can find his book on Amazon and also on okawabooks.com. So, Mia, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being an author's story. It was very insightful having you with us today. Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. So if any of you listeners want to know more about this topic, please feel free to go ahead and check out the Unhappiness Syndrome, which you can do so right now by going to the Amazon link in the description below the video. And if you'd like to follow our author interviews on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. So bye for now, everyone. I'll be back on AuthorStory weekly interviews with another inspiring author.